We need to literally recognize that the house is on fire and it's been burning for a long time. We need to put out the fire, and then we can decide how we're going to rebuild this house. But at this stage in time, anyone who is creating division, divisiveness amongst the Muslims is a shaitan. It's as simple as that. This is a shaitan. Those people that want to separate the Muslims through argumentation. We're not people of argumentation. Argumentation is a sign of error. The Prophet ﷺ said, مَا ضَلَّ قَوْمٌ بَعْدَ مَا أُوتُوا الْهُدَى إِلَّا مَا ضَلَّ قَوْمٌ بَعْدَ الْهُدَى إِلَّا أُوتَى الْجَدَلِ. No people ever go astray after they've been given guidance, except that it's replaced with argumentation. Argumentation is a sign of error. Malik radiallahu anhu did not argue. If he was in a gathering and people began to argue, he used to get up and say, Harb, you're a war. And we're of salam. We call Darul Islam is Darul Salam, the abode of peace. We're calling each other to peace. If we want to talk about things, first of all we should recognize who we are and what our capacities are. If we are not scholars, then we should not be debating issues that we really don't know anything about. Sharia is something, it is not something that everybody can talk about. There are certain basic things that everybody knows. It's called al-ma'lum min ad-din bid-darura. And those type of things we all know. Khamr is haram. That's not a problem. But when we start getting into differences of opinion and these type of things, we have to recognize Amr ibn al-Ma'ruf and Nahi anil Munkar is a maqam. Not everybody is capable of making Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahi anil Munkar, and the Quran itself uses a particle in order to articulate that. فَلْتَكُنْ مِنْكُمْ ummah. This minkum is tab'id. It's a partitive by the vast majority of scholars. Now this does not mean condemning wrongs that are very clearly wrong. We're talking about those things in which there is difference of opinion. And the ikhtilaf of this ummah, and I don't care, those people say this is a weak hadith, the ikhtilaf of this ummah has always been a mercy amongst those who have knowledge. We do, because Allah recognizes that أَلَا يَعْلَمُ مَنْ خَلَقَ وَهُوَ اللَّطِيفُ الْخَبِيرُ. Human beings have different capacities, cognitive capacities. We understand things at different levels. The Sahaba themselves had different degrees of understanding. Abu Bakr's understanding is not the same as the rest of the Sahaba, and there are many hadiths that indicate that. And those core Sahaba radiallahu anhum that were around the Blessed Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they were not at the same, they were at a much higher intellectual capacity than other Sahaba. Which doesn't mean there wasn't benefit in all of them and blessing. No, but those people became the leaders. They themselves had disagreements, and yet they respected each other. Sayyidina Ali's fatwa differ from Umar radiallahu anhu. The fatwa of Ibn Abbas are very different from the fatwa of Ibn Umar radiallahu anhu. This is a fact, historically. Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu had different fatwa. So they themselves had different understandings. We should recognize that the Muslims do have different understandings, but they're within a generous framework. If people go outside of the framework, first of all, it is the job of the scholars, to those rightly guided people who have the requisite knowledge in order to articulate these things, to delineate for us what those boundaries are, and when people go outside of those boundaries, unless the boundaries are clearly transgressed, in which every Muslim knows it. But there are many things that only appear to be a transgression to one person, and the scholar knows that in fact it's not a transgression, but rather it is a acceptable and rightly guided opinion of an imam from the A'immah. And so we have to begin to unify this ummah. This is the challenge of this time, is to begin to unify what has been separated. The kuffar have been dividing and conquering us for centuries. And we have to recognize that this is a game that we have to get out of. We have to just refuse to keep rolling the dice. Just say, no, we don't want to turn anymore. You play the game amongst yourselves. We're not going to play the game. They called literally the English Home Office, British Home Office, and the French called the destruction and dismantling of the Muslim empire, of the Ottoman Empire, they called it the Great Game. That was the term that they used for it. It's just a game for them. Go and cause fitna amongst people. And Muslims should not fall trapped to these type of things. So we should recognize, first of all, that we are in a Dajjalic system. We are in it now. We're a part of it. We're in it. We should recognize it for what it is and begin to do those things that will enable us to protect ourselves and our children. My recommendation to all of you is, now I know that the brother's not going to like this, but if you have a television, If you have a television, this is the most powerful tool that they have in terms of controlling people and disseminating their information. This is the most powerful tool that they have. If you are able to use your television for nothing other than useful things, then I would say, Allahu Alam, I'm not going to make a judgment on that. But if you find yourself wasting your time, if you find yourself being entrapped by this machine and following the addictive patterns of the vast majority of people, then get rid of it. Just get it out. I mean, that's my advice to you, a sincere advice as a brother to you. Get rid of the machine, because it's very powerful, it's addictive by nature. This has been proven. Read the Books for Elimination of Television. There's many books that have been written that have proven that the quality of life of those people who have gotten rid of this machine has been enhanced. And they do not miss it. And this is a reality. And I can attest to that, because I've lived without that machine for several years. And I have no desire. It really is a corruptive element. It will destroy your children. If you allow, it's like having shaitan as a babysitter. It's just allowing shaitan to take care of your children. It will sow corruption. And I'll just give you one example. The Grunwald, I think his name is, the Yahud that is responsible for this program called The Simpsons. Right? Now, I know this program's here. In the United States, it's a very popular program. This man is an anarchist, self-declared anarchist, openly. He said in an article, in an interview that he did, that his goal in life was to undermine all forms of authority. But he realized that because people have a natural, inborn tendency against anarchic tendencies, that we tend to more follow authority. And there's positive and negative aspects of that. He said that he realized that the best way to give his ideas, put anarchistic ideas out there, was to do it and make people laugh at the same time, so that they think it's like a joke, that they're watching some kind of comedy or something like this. And this is not simplistic. Children that watch these programs, these are role models. They're watching children that are grossly, what we call aql walidain, which is a kabira in Islam, is disrespect, filial impiety, gross disrespect towards your parents. This is one of the 7 mubiqat. And this is what television teaches children. If you watch these programs, you will see that children are constantly arguing with their parents, fighting with their parents, undermining the authority of their parents. If you watch films like The Little Mermaid, Aladdin, just to use those two as an example, or the Goofy movie. These are put out, mass movies that are put out. The message, the basic message of Aladdin is a very clever propaganda piece. The basic message is that tradition is something that should be broken. Right? This is a message to the children. Tradition is something that should be broken, because in the film, the princess is not allowed to marry a poor person. It's against the law. And the father's against it. But in the end, she goes against her father, and in the end, the father accepts it. And this is the message, that if your father's against something, in the end, he'll accept you. So just go against him, break authority, do these things. This is a constant theme. And The Little Mermaid is the same. So these are so-called, quote-unquote, innocent films being put out. You take your children to them, there's indoctrination going on. And the best propaganda is that which you don't recognize. This is the most effective form of propaganda, is that which you are not aware of yourselves. So we have to be very careful of allowing, Neil Postman said that the Americans no longer need to send armies like the previous colonists do. They just send their television programs to colonize people, because their whole message is consumerism. When on the way here, we had an Algerian brother we met who had a hat that said L.A. And I said, "Are you from Los Angeles?" I didn't know. He said, "No, I'm from Algeria." I said, "Well, it's almost the same now, right?" And he said, "Where are you from?" I said, "Los Angeles." I mean, I'm technically from that area. And he said, "Los Angeles," put his thumb up, "the best place." I said, "Oh, you've been there?" He said, "No, but I've seen it on the movies." You see, and this is it. I met one Muslim Arab in a Muslim country. He told me that "Ana marid wa Amerika shifai." He said, "I'm sick and America's my cure." And really, there's a lot of people, unfortunately, they believe this. And this is the effectiveness of the propaganda. This is the effectiveness of the propaganda. So we have to recognize it for what it is, begin to pull our children out of this system. We have to develop our own school systems. And don't put Islamic school. Why you have to put the Islamic school? Just private school. I mean, a lot of this problem that Muslims are having in England is over this religious issue. Get your children out of the public schools. Get them out of the public school. Get them into your own schools. If you're going to stay here, you have to do that. It's imperative. Because the school is the process of indoctrination. It is not a neutral educational system. It is based on a complete indoctrination of your children.